I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Well, welcome to the last of the candidate forums for the 2024 cycle. My name is Harry Tipper. I will be your moderator tonight. My able assistant is Jeannie Strait, and our timekeeper and video recorder is Tom Canning. Tonight's forum is going to be a little bit different because, well, we moved it from having a little storm show up, and so we're going to combine the Georgia House District 180 race and the Camden County Board of County Commissioners District 1 contest. Tonight, DeFonso Daniels is one of the candidates for House District 180. The Camden County Board of Commissioners District 1, Walter Cheek and Kevin Walker. Unfortunately, everybody has name tags. The other candidate for the House District 180 is Stephen Sains, who was unable to accommodate the change in date, but he did send a little message about that, and let me read that. Good evening. I want to express my deepest regret for not being able to join tonight's rescheduled general election debate with Mr. DeFonso Daniels. Hurricane Helene disrupted the original date, which I was looking forward to participating in. Yet it is a small disruption compared to the many Georgians to the rest of us facing life-altering damages. I hope that you will continue to join me in prayer and supplication for the recovery efforts of our neighbors. For ways to help, I invite you to go to GeorgiaHurricane.com, a new initiative that I have been proud to take on along with my fellow state legislators. Unfortunately, a prior commitment related to the governor's announcement this afternoon regarding statewide tax relief for Georgians required me to be at the state capitol and has left me unable to be with you in person tonight. This governor's proposal will require legislative approval, and I stand strongly behind the need to bring fiscal reprieve to our coastal Georgia families. I want to thank the forum organizers led by Mr. Tom Canning, participants, as well as my general election opponent, Mr. Daniels, for his commitment to this important discussion. Healthy debate is the cornerstone of our democracy, and will remain dedicated to ensuring that the voices of Georgia House District 180 are heard. I look forward to continuing our work together for the betterment of our district. If you need assistance or to speak with me, please do not hesitate to reach out directly on our constituent hotline at 912-324-2224. Now just a little bit of housekeeping. You may have noticed the restrooms are back out that door to the left, should you need them. Also, I ask you please to minimize distractions. Please either turn off your cell phones or put the ringers on vibrate. If you do need to take a call, please step outside the room. Also, just to maximize the time available on the forum, please refrain from applause or comment until after the candidates' final statements at the end, at which point there will be time for you to discuss things with them. Importantly, the questions asked tonight are the product of public input. Some questions are a consolidation of multiple similar inputs for the public, but all came from you, the voting public. The routine for tonight's question and answer session will be as follows. The candidates will respond to questions within a designated time and rotation.
Some questions will be for all the candidates and others will be directed to one or more specific candidate. As I read the question aloud, the candidates will be provided with a written copy of the question. Depending upon the question, either 1 or 3 minutes will be scheduled, and I'll announce that at the time of the question. As I said before, at the conclusion of our question and answer period, you all are welcome to applaud if you choose, and you are welcome to converse one-on-one with the candidates or in groups until 8 p.m., at which time the PSA would like us to depart. There also is some information on the desks by some of the candidates. So with that, let's go to the first question. This one is for each of 3 of the people on the panel, and they'll have 2 minutes to answer the question. Since the time that you made your decision to run for office, what personal and professional development actions have you engaged to better prepare yourself to be a successful representative and advocate for your constituents and community? And we'll start with Mr. Daniels.
Good evening. Well, since I started from the beginning, I've actually been engaging in talking with the city mayors, the county commissioners, and a lot of the citizens around the county. And from those actions, I have been able to pretty much develop into the person I am, because you have to understand that I am not a traditional politician. This is something that I decided to do out of the needs and necessities of what's going on around our community. So there's been a lot of actions that I've been involved in that have scoped it and formed my thoughts and emotions and changes, and looking at everything that I've been involved with when it comes to the citizens. I have changed since I started. So I've seen the views. My views also changed because I can see certain things when you get engaged into community actions and things. So, I have changed. I'm not really good at public speaking. That has also changed, so I'm kind of a little bit more comfortable with also doing that as well. So those are some of the developments that I have made as a new person on the scene, trying to go into this political genre.
Thank you. Mr. Cheek.
Oh, I'll have to, can you hear me okay? I'll have to say I'm not a politician or public speaker either, so we can hug and kiss on that one. Basically, my background, I'm an engineering consultant. I've been working in business for about 35 years. About 3 years ago, I decided to start backing off on my career for several reasons. I would be lying if I said it was just strictly to have time to run for county commissioner. But I have 2 grandboys that are coming along. I wanted a change in direction in career, so that my remaining years, I just wanted to change. So about 3 years ago, I started backing off my career. But what that does, it gives me time to focus on the county commission effort. I think we could probably all agree that we've seen elected officials, either city, county, state, federal, doesn't matter, that are not prepared when it comes to the meetings. I can't do that. So the changes I've made in my life in the past 2 to 3 years is just to make sure I have time to be your county commissioner. I have time to deal with the issues prior to the meeting, so when I come in, I'm educated as best I can. It's tough, and I commend anybody who is an elected official who works a full-time job, raises a family. There's not enough time in the day. So for 3 years, I've been backing off of that, so that I do have time to be your commissioner. That's probably the biggest personal change I've made in my life since I've started to run.
And Mr. Walker.
Okay, so personal professional development actions that I have engaged in, first of all, being informed of what's going on in my community. being out there and listening to the constituents, and attending county commissioners and city council meetings as well, to be informed and more engaged on what's going on and how, you know, I can advocate for those who I'm representing. I think more so even with being able to look into different workshops that I have attended online to even get information as to being a candidate, one who would represent the constituents, you know, in the district. And I think it's very important that you be in touch with those that you're serving, that you a touchable people person, and have the conversation with those who are currently serving in civic engagement. I've had several conversations with a few county commissioners, mayors, and then also with those who may have ran in the past and they have held office as well. So that has kind of prepared me for being a person who runs for the position.
Thank you. Now, this next question will just be for our two candidates for County Commission District 1. They'll have 2 minutes to respond. We'll start off with Mr. Walker. You have both stated in your campaign information that you are lifelong residents of Camden County with deep roots in the community. Notable in your campaign materials are your similarities regarding using town hall meetings to improve communications with the public. Please explain what differentiates you and your priorities from that of your opponent. Mr. Walker.
Regarding the town hall meetings, I think town hall meetings are important when you're dealing with those who serve, those who are in your district. And oftentimes we can't wait until the problem happens, but we have to be proactive before, you know, the problem actually takes place. And I think communicating along the lines, which our current county commissioners, they're already, you know, communicating via social media, emails and all those type of things. But I still think when you host a town meeting, that gives you a more personal experience with those who are in the district that you're serving. And the priorities, I mean, I don't know what would be more different, because both of us have stated in the information about town hall meetings and presenting that to those who we serve. So it's just up to those individuals, the constituents, if they attend those town hall meetings.
Thank you. Mr. Cheek.
Okay, I think the town hall structure, I just had a couple of, let me go back a little bit. I'm a lifelong resident of Camden County. I've been a lot of places in the world, and I keep coming back. So that means something to us as citizens. From the town hall perspective, I think the town halls do a couple of things. One is it takes the participants out of the regimented guidelines of a county commission meeting. It'll be more of there'll be an agenda, but it'll be very lax in how we handle things. Secondarily, I think if you get people out of that structured environment where they feel free to talk among ourselves in a town hall structure, that'll get people more interested in county government and how the workings of county government operates. There's a lot of people, I think, that are interested, but they really don't know how to get involved to get there. I hope that will spur interest in the workings of government and also get people to a point where they're comfortable to come and participate in those things. A couple of very specific things that I think the town hall will be good for is education purposes. You know, lately we're going through a reassessment of all the properties. I think a specific town hall meeting agenda could be an educational forum where people come in and understand how taxes are how the assessments are redone, and how that relates back to the, excuse me, back to the millage rate. So that could be a very specific topic. A second one would be everybody's interested in development, how the county is going to move forward with development, have a topic on development issues and understand how development takes place in the county from a regulatory standpoint. So those are two very specific town hall topics we could use, but in general, they would be no real agenda, just talk among ourselves with no guidelines and no regimented.
Thank you. Now, our next question is just for our candidate in House District 180, Mr. Daniels. You have stated that if elected, your first priority is to improve veteran services in Georgia. Does this objective and priority reflect the stated needs of your constituents in Glynn and Camden County, or is there a different driver?
All of the above. The reason why is because I've been across the United States. I am a 100% service-connected disabled veteran, and there's probably going to be no one better to explain to you some of the services that we're neglecting to have around our this district. And walking around, just give you an example, Georgia is has the second highest amount of counties in the United States, second to Texas. Quite sure a lot of people did not realize that. Now, the benefits that we are in definite need of is our retired veterans do not get a state income tax reduction or anything. So we also have the education benefits that we also need to focus on when it comes to the veterans benefits and also the dependent benefits. A lot of my child right now goes in Florida, so some of those benefits that he'll benefit and offer is coming from my disability. And another thing that we don't have, that we have very little of, is we don't have very many state homes for veterans, so we need to go ahead and increase or find some kind of way to actually increase those services for our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, stop just means wrap it up. Okay. This next question is back to our two candidates for County Commissioner, District 1. Regarding the county jail, during last week's Sheriff Candidate Forum, Sheriff Proctor said, and I quote, "A lot of these concerns have been brought to the attention of the Camden County Board of Commissioners. It," that is the jail, "is in deplorable condition. We've been kicking the can down the road for over a decade." Mr. Cheney said, "The Sheriff's Office's relationship with county leaders will be crucial. We have to fix our relationship with the Board of Commissioners to make sure they listen." If elected, what actions and leadership role will you take to improve jail conditions and perceived efficient relationships between the Sheriff's Office and the Board of County Commissioners? We will start with Mr. Chief.
Yeah, I've toured the jail a couple of times, and it's definitely in deplorable condition. Sheriff Proctor is correct. The first thing that needs to happen is for whatever issues are going on between the Sheriff's Department and the County Commission, that needs to heal. Evidently, there's some animosity, there's some issues between the two boards. We've got to overcome that before we can overcome anything else, either financially or physically, to get the jail redone. I understand the jail now has been studied several times, and the latest I hear is the jail needs to be torn down and build a new jail at another location. All that's great, but the board and the sheriff have to work together on this. So Mr. Proctor's correct, Mr. Cheney's correct. So whoever wins the election, I'll be first in line to make sure we heal whatever wounds are out there, and move forward with getting a new jail, because we desperately have to have one.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
I too have toured the jail, and it is in somewhat of a deplorable condition. I mean, you go in, and the day that I actually went in, it was raining. So there was water that was coming through the roof that was seeping throughout the hallways. And so I think with the sheriff's department and the commissioners, there's got to be some transparency between the two. There's got to be a relationship built between those two entities. I don't think if one is upset with the other and not being able to accomplish what they need to do, we know that we need something to be done with our jailhouse. And then those inmates who are in there now, even though they are incarcerated, they're human beings as well. And so I feel like they deserve, to be in a place where they're being treated correctly, they're being housed correctly. So I do agree with the current sheriff and then also Mr. Cheney, who's running for sheriff as well. It is crucial. It is very crucial, and it has been so long, and now we're in a place where what is the next thing that we need to do? Funding. The funding is available. Let's make do what we're do what we can in order to persist on moving this thing forward. And again, we cannot have a board of commissioners and the sheriff's department always at odds about a jailhouse. We know what the county needs, and so it's up to those two entities to work things out between the two in order to get that fixed.
Thank you. This next question is going to be for each of our panelists. For the past several years, state and county leadership and offices have influenced the management and finance activities of the Camden County Public Service Administration and appointed Camden County Public Service Authority Board. What has gone right and what has gone wrong? What, if anything, will you do differently in representing your constituents on this subject in the future? And we will start with Mr. Walker.
Well, when we look at the PSA board, what has gone right and what has gone wrong, we got to make sure that we're honoring this board. We got to make sure that the people who are actually in position, who are working with the finances, that they are doing their job correctly in auditing the PSA board. We can look at the problems and the issues that have gone on over the years, looking at if there needs to be any type of restructure done without the buildings, or if we have baseball fields that are throughout the county, parks and recreation. All of these things, it takes, us as a county to oversee it, and then you have the other place, it's their responsibility as well to manage that. And so I think going forward, there needs to be, again, a level of accountability. There needs to be some auditing done in order to represent those who serve in the county, those who are using the different parks and recreation. And it should not be left up to just the citizens taking their money and putting it in it when we have a PSA board who's responsible for it.
Thank you. Mr. Cheek.
Well, I think from the PSA standpoint, the things we've done right, the PSA has a lot of good programs for the kids, adults, and the elderly that are on an ongoing basis. Now, what's been done wrong is the financial insecurities we've dealt with. Hopefully we're past that now with the new director moving in a different direction, but the finances have been probably the biggest issue all along. And some of the issues that came up regarding the lack of adequate maintenance on some of the parks around the county, my idea of a park is, if there's a park, and we hear the argument that, well, only 10 people use that park a year or a month or whatever this discussion is. But the fact is, we have parks. They have to be adequately maintained so they're usable for the communities that they serve, regardless of how many people use them. We have them, we've got to keep them up. If we can't keep them up, we got a problem. Beyond that, the finances, we can talk about the law, the theft and all that in the past, but hopefully we're past that now. But I think from the PSA standpoint, what I would do is we need to look at the overall structure of the PSA, how it is made up, what the representation is, whether it's from the citizens or from elected officials. Look at it from a top-down approach and see if do we really need a PSA. I'm not saying I'm against the PSA. We just got to decide from top down, what's the function, where are we going, where do we need to get so it's functional and there's no controversies about how it's run. But again, back to the good part, we have great programs here. We can use more, obviously.
Thank you. And Mr. Daniels.
As far as the PSA and how it's been ran and functioning, you have to be out and involved in all, or see most of the activities that everybody's actually involved in. Go to the parks, see what the maintenance guys are doing out there, and look at the parks and see how they are being maintained. If you don't see it, if you don't see how it's most of the time it's always empty, then you're not going to be able to have that impact. That impact is when you actually impact it directly from seeing things like that or being out there engaging with the citizens and hearing their voices and telling you what is going on, why they don't go to the park, and the need for this, the need for that. Then you can't really make real life changing measures, because you have to be able to see that. So going to these parks, and talking to the citizens will help you actually guide you in the direction of making these changes for what's going on with the PSA. Now, if we're going to actually do something about the PSA and making sure we maintain the funds and make sure they're distributed properly across the county and not just directly at certain individuals, we're going to continue to have these same exact problems. So we need to focus and be able to spread these issues or spread those fundings out to the community, so it does not look like we're targeting certain community members and we're catering to those members. So that's one of the biggest things that I think that we need to fix. As far as what we would do as an alternative, there's plenty of things that we can do as an alternative if we decide to, as you mentioned earlier, try to get rid of the PSA. There's lots of things that we can do where it gives it back to the cities and put that burden back onto the cities and let them go ahead and start reinvesting back in their community members and start getting those guys contracted out. Those are some of the issues that we can actually face or do at those times if we actually come to the point where we want to do something like that. But as of now, I think the PSA is running at a level where it should be running currently. So past is past, present is present.
Thank you. Well, this next question is just for our candidate for House District 180. As the opposing candidate to Representative Saines, the incumbent, you apparently disagree with aspects of his priorities and record of actions. You have pledged to, quote, bring a new vision to Georgia politics, unquote. If elected, what will change? You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. What will change? What would change would be quality. Right now, in my opinion, and every one of the citizens that I have engaged in talking with, is that we have an absent representative. We no longer need an absent representative. We need also a representative that represents every single constituent in this county. That means everyone. We don't cater to the populace. We don't cater to individualism. We cater to every single citizen, Republican, Democrat, Independent. We should always, as leaders, be able to lead from a position that actually emulates every one of these citizens and their problems and their issues. getting out here and engaging in these community activities, or going to individual houses and knocking on doors versus having someone go to those doors for you. It makes a major difference because the citizens actually want to hear from the actual candidate. Going out and I learned a lot of lessons throughout my campaign, and these are some of the lessons that I have learned. I learned that there is a major disconnect when it comes to the citizens and their elected officials in this county. That means that we're not going to be able to get anything done unless we do most of the things that the citizens are actually asking for. We haven't accomplished anything. What have we accomplished? What has the previous or the current elected official done in this county or this district? If we can't answer that question, that means that we are in need of dire need of change, and that change is me. So if elected, I guarantee you, you will see my face in almost every event around me if I'm not actually the one that's actually hosting it. Because I believe in women's rights. I believe in almost everything that you guys have problems with. I'm just telling you right now, I only got a certain amount of time. There's a lot of problems, a lot of issues both Republicans, Democrats, and Independents have that they are wanting to express and get out there, and I'll be that voice to get it out for you. I don't hold back.
Thank you.
I know we're all very enthusiastic, but we have a limited amount of time, so we're going to do the applause or whatever at the end. Thank you. All right, this next question for our two candidates for the County Board of Commissioners, District 1. Are you satisfied with the past and present use of SPLOT funds and the proposed SPLOT 9 budget? If not, what would change? Also, as either a replacement to SPLOT or eSPLOT, is there a need for T-SPLOT? And does it have a place and purpose in our county that you would propose? We'll begin with Mr. Cheek.
I was going to skip down to T-SPLOS, but I'm pretty much satisfied with the way the SPLOS works out. The new SPLOS, I think, is deficient on the amount of money we have in the roads. And part of the process is all the cities and the counties come together, come up with a list, and then it's pared down to the money that we think we're going to get. I think from the District 1 standpoint, if you talk to the folks in District 1, the two biggest issues are roads and drainage and taxes. So let's go back to SPLOS 9. There's money in SPLOS 9 for roads, it's mainly maintenance, but it's not for paving roads. That would be my only disagreement with SPLOS 9. SPLOS is a very important funding source for capital improvements. Let me back up a little bit. What we can't do is, if we don't get SPLOS approved, then some of those projects will go away. Then it goes back to necessary projects and pay out of the general fund. Now let's go down to T-SPLOS. As District 1 representative, I would be all for T-SPLOS because we need to desperately pave roads in the north end of the county. Would SPLOS be a replacement, or would T-SPLOS be a replacement? Well, that's up to the voters. Is E-SPLOS? We're looking at SPLOS plus E-SPLOS plus T-SPLOS, that's 3%. How do the voters feel about that? But as far as T-SPLOS goes, I'm all for that for District 1 because of the dire need for paving roads.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
Well, I'm somewhat satisfied with what's going on with this process being used, and of course, I do know that infrastructure is one of the main priorities for District 1. As it has been stated by Mr. Chief, when we look at the roads and drainage, you know, the SPLOS 9 budget really does not have that detail in there as to when there will be any type of drainage or road pavings. And I think when we look at SPLOS, it needs to be put on the ballot for the citizens to help make that decision as well. And then having a replacement for SPLOST, I don't think right now that needs to be somewhat of a replacement, but just knowing that, hey, this is what this money is used for, and this is what we need to do with it if it's going to help improve our infrastructure in our communities, especially with District 1.
Thank you. This next question is also for our two Board of Commissioners candidates, and this is a 1-minute question. District Attorney Keith Higgins oversees 5 counties in Georgia, including Camden and Glynn counties. Leading up to this past month, there have been a reported financial crisis in the District Attorney's office, the Brunswick Judicial Circuit. Regarding this subject, do you agree with the recent actions and decisions made by the Camden County Board of Commissioners? Are additional checks and balances required? And we will begin with Mr. Walker.
I actually was attending those meetings when that was on the agenda, and I do agree with the decisions and the actions that were made by our current Board of Commissioners, and I do still believe that there needs to be some additional balances and checks when it do comes down to the district attorney and what the district attorney is doing, especially when he has an office here in Camden. So that way, we'll know that he's within his budget and not over budget, or if there's any mishaps that's taking place within his office as well.
Thank you. Mr. Chief.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the district attorney issues go, we can't stop the machine to prosecute felons. So I do agree with what the county commission is doing. But anytime we spend as much money as we spend for any agency, whether it's the DA or anybody else, there needs to be more checks and balances. Because how did it get so bad, so fast, so far? It goes back to the PSA discussion. It can't get that bad that fast if there's checks and balances already in place to deal with that. So yes, I do agree with what the county commission is doing, but we definitely have to have checks and balances for the DA's office and any other agency we fund to that level.
Thank you. Our next question is back to our candidate for House District 180. It's another 1-minute question. As a member of the House of Representatives who will participate in the process of setting the state's annual operating budget and address state priorities from agricultural development to tax policy, what have you done or will you do to prepare to perform these duties and responsibilities?
Can't say I've done anything. I haven't been there yet. So some of the major things that I think that we need to focus on and to make sure that we address some of those duties is basic collaboration across the aisle to make sure that we get as many, or putting yourself in a position to where you can actually get as many grants and benefits that are directly to Camden County residents. So when you're when you're actually out there fighting for your constituents, you need to make sure you're putting yourself in a position to fight for your constituents in that aspect. So yes, I'll be trying to get on any board to actually, be the best representative for our constituents that we have here in Camden County or District 180.
Thank you. This next question is back to our two county commissioner candidates. Are you satisfied with the way regularly scheduled Camden County Commissioners' public meetings are conducted? Or should there be changes in protocols and procedures? Please explain. And we will begin with Mr. Cheek.
Well, I think the 3-minute rule is probably needs to be reviewed. I don't think most people can, most people can speak their mind in 3 minutes or 5 minutes. I don't think the time period is as critical as allowing some latitude at the end rather than just cutting off the conversation. If the conversation's moving forward and is productive, give them some more time. It could still be 3 minutes, or it could be 5, or whatever the decision's made, but a little bit of latitude, I think, would go a long way to help people's feelings during those meetings.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
I must be honest and say I'm not satisfied with how those meetings actually go, especially when it does come down to the public comments and the time frame that those individuals are given. Sometimes everybody may not be able to get their point out within the 3 minutes, but again, it's in the time. You know, give them another minute or two, just hear them out, but don't just push them away, you know, from the podium. And then, if you see, you know, threaten with, okay, we're not going to move it. I just feel like there needs to be some type of resolve there. And I know that there's a code of conduct that you have to follow, but again, for those who are coming up to speak, we need to allow them more time to speak.
Thank you. Now this question is for all 3 candidates. Who do you personally consider as expert resources in the community on issues in which you have little to no personal experience? Would you confer with them if elected, or just go with staff recommendations? And we'll begin with Mr. Walker.
Well, when we look at considering expert on the resources in the community on issues, I think we need to look at what type of experience that person may have. If elected, or just go with staff recommendations. You know, we need to know what their background consists of, so we'll know, you know, who's operating in that position, and not just putting someone there who we're basically having to constantly check to know what they're doing when it comes down to the resources that the community will be using.
Thank you. Mr. Cheek.
As a commissioner, a lot of the information that comes down needs to come through the county staff and including the county attorney. As a commissioner, if you're not comfortable with the information you're getting, you need to do your own research, whether it's through internet research or professionals is related to this question, but we have to have outside sources to discuss things with so that we are making the right decisions. From my background, Department of Transportation, Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, GEMA, there's tons of resources out there locally and federally and from the state level. But if we don't get information from the staff that's appropriate, we are responsible for doing our own research to make sure we're making the right decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Daniels.
I consider both the current and present elected officials as the experts in those fields. What I would do is actually gather that information as much, if I'm definitely not savvy in those informations or subject matter on it. I would definitely get information from every last possible resource that I could possibly get. And then I'll make my own decision on it. I won't just take that information and just go, hey, this is what we got. But for me personally, I try to educate myself on almost every field that's going to be involved in the job. So whatever the bill description is, that's what I'm actually trying to educate myself on as much as possible. And then if I need that extra information or from those subject matter, people that's currently working those positions, I will go grab that information from them.
Thank you. This next question is for our 2 county commissioner candidates. The county budget and the county administrator's wish list for SPLOST 9 contain more new buildings and facilities rather than properly addressing unmet infrastructure needs. If elected, what will you do to close the gap between the staff's healthy appetite for new stuff
and the taxpayers' frustration with more and more and more while not fully maintaining what we have. And we will begin with Mr. Cheek.
Well, I go back to the part of the PSA discussion is we absolutely have to maintain the facilities we have. From the new stuff perspective, my background, I'm an infrastructure person. So if we don't have water, sewer, roads, drainage, we don't have anything. We can have all the new buildings we want, but if we don't have the infrastructure to support that, then we have nothing. So my position would be, I'm an infrastructure guy. I'll push every avenue I can push to get infrastructure in place to support the new buildings that we have as the new buildings come along or the wish list comes along as we need them. But again, not to be redundant, but if we don't have infrastructure, we have nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
Again, I think we need to worry about the previous things before we go adding all of these things to a wish list. We know the infrastructure that the county is dealing with, but if we continue to build more new buildings and facilities rather than addressing those unmet infrastructures, that's going to get further and further down the road. So we need to assess and evaluate with closing that gap, even though the county administrator feels like there's some things that may need to be done, adding new things in, we need to make sure that we're meeting the things that have not been met. Let's fix those first before we go and add more and more money to the budget.
Thank you. This next question again will be for our two county commissioner candidates. Both the JDA and the PSA are independent authorities established by state statute. Both have independent boards, yet the county continues to treat both as functional arms of the county commission, which limits each authority's responsiveness and effectiveness. What, if any, changes to these dysfunctional relationships should the commission make? And we'll begin with Mr. Walker.
Okay, so we know that JDA and PSA are independent authorities, and they both have their own boards. If any changes with these boards, I think again we need to make sure we have some transparency between the two. Building a relationship with those who are serving on those boards, giving them the responsibility yet to serve their constituents. And then when we look at these boards, who makes up these boards? Is it city officials that's making up the boards? Is it citizens that's making up the board? You know, when we give them the authority, we need to let them exercise that authority when they're on those boards.
Thank you. Mr. Cheek.
Well, both the JDA and the PSA are funded by the county, so there is some accountability back to the county commissioners from both authorities. I've been working with the JDA in one capacity or another for probably 30 years, not so much the PSA, but given my background, particularly the one authority, I have an institutional knowledge of things when they're not going as well as they should. And when those things come up, I'll definitely attack those, but it still goes back to the relationship between the county commission and the authorities that serve the JDA and the PSA board. I think it's a matter of changing. Is there a dysfunctional relationship? That's a matter of seeing it, dealing with it at the time. If you just make a sweeping judgment that everything's dysfunctional, you can't start there. You have to start with one thing at a time. Get past the dysfunction, get to the next dysfunction. At some point, we'll have a level playing field if there's dysfunction that's going on between the two boards and the county commission.
Thank you. This next question is for all three candidates. Flooding in low-lying areas of any coastal community have always been issues during hurricanes or high tides. However, the unprecedented rainwater flooding this past year is a clear indicator that the situation is becoming worse and that traditional methods of mitigation are no longer effective. Other than commissioning more studies, what do you think the government response should be to further mitigation, storm flooding, and property damage? And we'll begin with Mr. Daniels.
Well, I believe that there are things that we can take into consideration. We're having a lot of issues around the county that we are able to see, and also see the impact of of some of these environmental impacts. For instance, the flooding is causing a lot of mold and mildew around the county, and I do believe that we need to implement some kind of study where it comes to a lot of these respiratory issues that I have knocked the doors and I ask the question, what's going on, and I get that information from those residents that they also have respiratory issues in those homes. So I do think that we need to actually improvise some kind of study around our district to see just how impacted we are with these environmental floods and things like that. As far as what we should do, we should be able to strengthen and enforce strict environmental regulations that we currently have, but reinforce those regulations. Conduct regular water quality tests to make sure that we're not getting or exposed to any kind of runoff or pollutions or anything like that. Also, we should also use or encourage sustainable land use practices. So that's when you come to all of these new businesses coming in, they should also have some kind of regulations to go along with those as well. We should also educate the public and have them be aware of some of the benefits and some of the problems that are facing I would say the rivers and the aquifers. We need to educate them on how impactful those are and how beneficial they are as well, and why we need those regulations and why we actually having such problems that we're having. Now, collaborating with the county, the city, and trying to get some of these things regulated and moving. I've already been talking to most of them already, so we've already been engaged in some of these community actions already.
Thank you. Mr. Cheek.
Having been involved in drainage for a lot of years, hurricanes and extreme high tides that's a different problem. You can't design for nature when it's to that level. What we can do, though, is we have development standards inside the county that's in place now. We've got to make sure that the staff take those development standards, make sure they're approved locally, from the state level and from the federal level. And there's a tier of approvals that are already in place. Make sure those requirements are adhered to. And then if we find an area where we need to do something more than that, what we can't do as a county is we can't lessen the rules from like the Army Corps of Engineers or GDOT or FEMA. We can't lessen those rules, but we can have a step higher than that if we choose to as a county. If we have specific areas that are problems, and we can target those areas. We work on those areas independently. And I don't think we need to spend a ton of money on consultant services and that sort of thing, because we've already pinpointed the areas that are the problem areas. From that, you get into an improvement process where you redesign and get permits from the Army Corps of Engineers or whatever it takes to make sure the outfalls work. But my point is the development standards are in place. If they're not adequate, we need to address that and to make them adequate.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
Of course, I know there should be protocols in place when we look at the amount of rainfall that we're getting in these areas. And we know that certain areas that, may flood because they're low-lying areas. But I think the drainage issues, from the culverts not being cleaned out, and then evaluating how much stormwater is being collected in those areas. Are we improving those areas prior to hurricane season, or are we waiting until a storm happens and now we're in a rush trying to clean out those areas, or go through the protocols of if the Army engineers and GDOT, they already examine the area and put things in place, are we following their guidelines? Or we're just overlooking it? So I think what we need to do is we don't need more studies because we know the problem areas. So it should just be how can we fix and mitigate the issues and the property damage. That way citizens are not continuing to run into flooding when it comes into their homes. Or if they live in a neighborhood and they can't get out because the road is washed out.
Thank you. Now this next question will be for our county commissioner candidates. As a county commissioner with the responsibility of providing a system of local government services designed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of various citizens, what part of county government management and staff functions would you prioritize for improvement and why? And we'll begin with Mr. Walker.
As a county commissioner with the responsibility of providing a system for local government services designed to protect the health, one part of the county government management and staff function, I think what needs to be prioritized is the safety of the citizens. And we can look at the law enforcement here within our county. That definitely needs to be a prioritized thing, along with mental health. We may have issues where law enforcement may go out and get a call about an individual who may be having a mental crisis. But do we have something in place for mental health to help them? We can't just use law enforcement tactics and that person is having a mental issue or crisis, and worst case scenario, it may be a life or death situation. So I think we need to prioritize the safety and welfare of our citizens and implementing more things and protocols in place for our mental health.
Thank you. This next question is for our candidate for House District 180. Representing a rural district, is there anything the House can and needs to do to prevent District 180 from the same healthcare crisis as other small rural districts have experienced in losing their hospitals or care centers because of financial issues? Where does this fall in your priorities? Mr. Daniels.
Is one of my top 3 targets of things that I want to do and accomplish while in the House. Healthcare, we need to expand Medicare. So Medicaid expansion is one of the biggest things that we need to expand to get passed around here. Now, the reason why we all know some of the things that's going on across the state, where there's we're losing a lot of hospitals around the state. And you have to look at why we're losing those hospitals. And some of the reasons that we are losing in the rural communities are because we're trying to privatize everything. When you're trying to push everything to private, that basically means you're taking away from something. And I don't want to be the one to try to be that type of person to cater to private industries and anything like that. But I do understand the need for certain things. However, Medicaid, we have 90% of that will be paid for by the federal government. That means the state will be required for that extra 10%. So why are we not trying to save lives and trying to get as many as possible covered? Right now we're at 14% at least for our district that does not have any kind of coverage whatsoever. So we want to go ahead and try to get them, get everybody, as many people as possible covered. That way we can negate any kind of these medical issues that may incur throughout the lifetime. Now, when it comes to some of the healthcare issues that we're facing, and what we have currently right now with the governor's plan. He had a plan of what 300,000 was supposed to be and actually sign up, but we only are around 300, about 3,000. So we don't want to cause more endured health problems around the state We want to be able to help people. So when we're going to be pro-life, we're going to have to be pro-life from the womb to the tomb. That means from the beginning to wherever they're at right now, all the way out through the birth and present. You know, those are things that we have to continue to do throughout life. So we're going to actually make sure that happens. We're going to have to continue on and press on with that.
Thank you. The next question is going to be for our two county commissioner candidates. The Sheriff's Department has complained for years that it has inadequate funding. While no department should expect to receive funding at its desired level, given limited resources here, what is the answer to resolve this never-ending dispute with the sheriff? And we'll begin with Mr. Chief.
Well, obviously, the Sheriff's Department, he submits the budget just like every other department does in the county. The only way to resolve that really is to make sure we're coordinating with the Sheriff's Department, get past whatever issues are there now, and scrutinize this budget to the point of making sure that he's not overstating anything that he needs. It's real easy for, and I want to say this, it's real easy to take public safety. People don't want to criticize public safety. So public safety is one that you can quickly increase budgets where you really don't need to, because people don't know the lack of public safety, if that makes sense way of saying that. So really it's a coordination issue between the Sheriff's Department, whoever it is, and the County Commission to make sure the Sheriff's Department funding is adequate, but it's not overstated.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
Again, inadequate funding. The budget, there has to be some transparency between the Sheriff's Department and the County Commissioners with the budget, what's needed. You know, the Sheriff's Department, if they need certain items, is this something that is top priority, or is it something that can wait? And I think more so when we look at that, sometimes that will eliminate the dispute between the two. Because it may be so that whatever items that they're inquiring about or asking about, it may not be something that they need right now. It may just need to be another time for it.
Thank you. Again, this next question is for County Commissioner candidates. To those who attend or view commissioner meetings, it appears commissioners are expected to, quote, go with the flow and never disagree with the chair or the staff. If need be, how comfortable and prepared are you in being the lone or minority dissenting voice on issues that you hold a different view or opinion? We'll start with Mr. Walker.
Well, my take on that is you're representing those in your district. And it may be that you are the wrong person because, hey, these are the constituents that I'm representing. And I'm their voice. And so I should be able to speak on their behalf. So if my chair may not agree or disagree with the staff, I mean, if I got to stand out there by myself, I have to do that because that's the reason for my serving, to represent those who are in the district, the constituents.
Thank you. Mr. Chief.
I would have no reason to have a problem with being the lone or minority dissenting voice. It goes back to what I mentioned a moment ago. For the information the county commission gets from staff, and when I say staff, I include the county attorney also. If I'm not comfortable with the information that's coming down, there's nothing that's important that couldn't wait 2 weeks until we get our information in order. Meaning, I'll be the first one to table an issue, or I'll be the first one to be the lone vote if necessary.
Thank you. And this next question is still with our commissioner candidates. Are you satisfied with the county animal control procedures and staff response to citizens reporting roaming, unattended, and offensive dogs or other animals? Is this a subject that you are aware, plan to investigate, and address? And we'll begin with Mr. Cheek.
I'll have to admit, I've probably worked with every department in the county government over the years. Animal control is my weak point. I have to admit that. But yes, I am aware. I plan to investigate and I'll address whatever issues come up. But I honestly will have to, that'll be one of my educational exercises when I'm elected.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker.
I think we can do better with our animal control here in the county. And I am aware of this subject because it has come up on the agenda for county commissioner meetings. I believe not too long ago, there was some type of legislation that was passed with the animal control services getting a grant. And so I think when we look at the response of the citizens that are calling to report, you know, we need to make sure that we have adequate people that's working with animal control services in place to help eliminate the issues of roaming and unattended or offensive dogs. We know what can happen if there's an animal, like for example, uncontrollable animal may be out in the neighborhood. You may have children that's out there playing. They're risking their lives. You may even have babies. They're risking their lives because they're unattended animals that are roaming. So when the time comes, I think we need to again evaluate the animal control procedures and policies with the staff.
Thank you. Well, now we've come to the closing portion of our forum. We're going to give each of the candidates up to 4 minutes for closing remarks, but we have made a little bit of suggestion here. So let me read you this question. In your closing statement, please discuss subjects that are important to you that have not been covered by the forum questions. And if elected, why will your constituents be best served with you as their representative and advocate? And we will begin with Mr. Walker.
Well, what's important to me is what the citizens want and what they need for this county. I think we have to be somewhat receptive to the citizens. When they come and they have questions and concerns, we need to be ready to hear those concerns. We need to be able to let them know that, hey, I am concerned, I'm listening to you, I'm not just excommunicating you because I may not agree with, you know, where you live, where you stay, what kind of affiliation that you may be a part of. It's your job to serve everybody. And I think what we have to look at here is when we're talking about our county with being elected, how can we help economically? What can we do to help the county continue to grow? What type of things can we put in place? What type of infrastructure can we put in place? And all for the betterment of the community. And so, if I'm elected, it's going to be my job, my priority, to serve, not just do this for a title, but to serve those who I represent and advocate for the constituents. I think that's one of the things that we need. We need to advocate, and we need to listen to what they're saying. Listen to the citizens. Don't turn a deaf ear to them. Don't shut them off, but at least let them know that you're listening and you're concerned. So that's where I stand.
Thank you. Mr. Cheek.
I'm going to go quickly back to question 15 about health, safety, welfare. The question was, one part of county government management, what I focus on, that's public works. If you don't have roads, drainage, infrastructure, you don't have health, safety, and welfare of the citizens. So my areas of focus are public works, infrastructure, my engineering background. I'll use that to promote good, solid economic and commercial development in the county. Work with the development authority for Camden County, the local development authorities, and regional development authorities, which I've worked for in the past extensively. If you want a candidate that's qualified to do that, that's me. If you want a politician, that's not me. I want to be able to make a difference on the board of commissioners. I want to look back in 30 years and say, that board in the mid-20s and 2030s, they got their act together, they put aside their egos, they put aside the differences, and we moved forward with the county. The real goal is to keep the county growing so we can have our kids and grandkids opportunity to stay here. And I'm fortunate because I have a 10-year-old grandson and a 5-year-old grandson. They all live here now, but what are they going to do when they graduate high school? My goal is to keep them here, strictly a selfish motive. But I can use that selfish motive for everybody in the county because I know there's more grandparents out there that want that same opportunity. If you want somebody that has an ego, that's not me. You can change my mind if the argument is just and makes sense. You can talk to me. If you want somebody to talk to me, I'm in. Call me, text me, I'll respond. I guarantee you I'll respond. I won't make impulsive decisions. It goes back to making sure we have information from the staff to us to do our own research so we don't make impulsive decisions based on not having the knowledge. If you're looking for somebody, I've got some notes here about what I was going to close with. If you're looking for somebody that is going to be out there for a photo op, that's not me. If you want somebody that's interested in moving the county forward progressively, logically, that's me.
Thank you. And finally, our candidate for House District 180, Mr. Daniels.
I am a father, I am a husband, and I am a citizen of this district. I am a candidate running on the citizens' needs, wants, desires, because I feel the impact. I live in an environment in which I wish to represent. And I've walked around this community, and I've seen so many things that are very disheartening. Doesn't matter what your social standing is. I wish to represent you. I wish to sit back and listen to all the things that you guys are having issues with and take them and run with them and do something about it, not sit back and watch it and continue to watch it happen. If I can't fix it, I'm going to go to where the problem can be fixed. And I'm going to address it. I'm going to tackle it. I'm going to tackle it head on. That is what I am here for. There's so many things that we did not touch on that is going around in this district. And I know mental health is definitely one of those things that we didn't touch on. We need to definitely tackle what's going on around here with that. Also, child care. I intend to work with schools or the superintendent to develop an early childhood development program here in order for us to get rid of some of this high-cost child care that we have here in Camden County. It is absolute outrage how the child care is here in Camden County. And some of us don't realize why it's so high. it's because of what we're being lumped in with. We're being lumped in with Jacksonville right now. I was just in a meeting this morning that actually solidified my thoughts on why we're being charged so high for this child care thing. So, I mean, there's a collective of issues around the county that are not being addressed. It's because we don't get, as leaders, we don't get out into the mud and get our feet dirty. We don't get our hands dirty enough. So we need to get out there and see what our citizens are actually going through before we get on social media and start posting, hey, this or that. We need to see it and feel the impact that our citizens are actually feeling. If we don't feel those impacts, then guess what? The need and the urge to get out and actually fix that problem is not going to ever be there because you don't feel it. So putting yourself in a position of that citizen, that would actually encourage you to want to get out and fix those situations. So yes, I will be a citizen's leader, a citizen's representative, and that's what I intend to do as your representative. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I first of all want to thank all the candidates for what has turned into a fairly long forum, but they've done a very good job for us all, giving their positions, and so please join me. I also want to thank you all for your perseverance and staying around to listen for this session. And again, I'm going to thank PSA for letting us use this facility. With that, this forum is concluded. Thank you.